Hi, everyone. It's Peter Kraut of Silver Advisor with another episode of the Pater Prospector, where we interview management of companies that we recommend, personally own, and also, of course, track and report on. And today I have Andrew Pollard, who is President and CEO of Blackrock Silver. Andrew, of course, thanks for taking some time to speak with us about the exciting developments at Blackrock.
Yeah, well, what an incredible time to be getting in front of you.
It certainly is, and we're going to make the most of it. You've got a lot going on at BlackRock. Maybe the first point we can talk about is the key catalysts that you have coming up this year. I'm just going to sort of mention them, and of course, you can elaborate, but you've got an updated resource, you've got a PEA in Q1. Take it away.
Yeah. Well, as I see it, we've got, two big, step changes for us that I'm looking forward to this year. The first is we're coming out with a brand new PEA, which is going to be inclusive of an updated MRE as well, which is going to take into account all of the drilling and all of the work we've done since we released our first PEA back in September of 2024. I think we've done about 45,000 meters of drilling since then. A lot of that was on infill to convert our ounces to the indicated category and really, answer the unanswered question that was really remaining at that time was, can we meaningfully convert our inferred ounces to indicated without blowing up our project? And, we answered that question definitively in September of last year when we came out with what is really the first of a double header of resources where we drilled out the first, 2.5 years or so of our mine plan to the indicated category at roughly the exact same grades. So at the end of Q1, we're going to be coming out with a new PEA, which is also going to take into account all that drilling, but also all the expansion drilling that we've been doing, where we're just purely focused on growing the mine life and really wrapping our heads around, what sort of project this can be. To put in perspective, when we did that first PEA, our upside case for metals prices was 2280 gold and 2760 silver. So, expect a lot of changes but between our first one and this one. We think we're going to be adding quite a bit of mine life. But, in terms of robustness, this thing, well, I can't even wrap my head around what it would look like at spot. The other step change, we're not just a mineral inventory and we're not just sort of spinning our wheels, focused on adding ounces and putting on news releases about what a great project this is. No, we're square set on developing this thing. So for the last year or so, we've been working diligently behind the scenes, doing all of the environmental data collection we need to get this thing permitted. So we're seeking permits right now that will, if all comes together, allow us to break ground on this in 2027 and start working our way underground and into the guts of this vein system so that we can ultimately start mining, start doing bulk samples, and really, on a project like this, once you're underground, you're underground. So things can move very quickly. So, once again, the PEA and the new resource, and then we get this thing permitted. Having an asset like this in the continental US that's effectively got the green light, that's going to probably be the biggest thing we've ever done from a valuation perspective.
So it sounds like some exciting, compelling catalysts to come, and odds of a re-rate sound like they're pretty high at this point.
Yeah,
Um,
well, silver's looking pretty good here too, so
exactly,
that that
exactly.
that can be the re-rate in itself.
Exactly. That's something that we've kind of been talking about lately. How as well as many of the miners have done, they've in no way reflected the gains in the silver price, at least not as a group. And so they're when the analysts start to maybe use $60 or something along those lines as a new average. I mean, that's going to be almost more than double, right? So,
Right.
and that's
Yeah,
still
well,
conservative.
we're
So,
still early. What that means is we're still early, and ultimately the market does have a way of fairly valuing it. And sometimes you feel crazy, and what are they missing? And then all of a sudden you wake up, and it's the Valhalla moment.
exactly. You and I chatted before we started, before I hit record on this interview about how the U.S. has added silver to their critical minerals list. Maybe you can speak to that a little bit and how that, can affect and can support and push forward for someone
Yeah,
like BlackRock.
that's been incredible. For our project to be getting to the stage it's at now, and then to have the U.S. government really take a pragmatic approach to permitting, but also backstopping financially projects just like this. Just based off our last PEA, our project's poised to be a top five silver producer in America and easily the lowest cost silver producer in America. And, from a domestic production point of view, some of our years will be jogging domestic production by up to 15%, depending on the year. So, with the Trump administration now saying, adding silver to the critical minerals list, um, you know, we were already looking at an expedited permitting process because our project's entirely on patented claims, and we sort of circumvent a lot of the really time-consuming, onerous federal regulatory agencies. For us, we literally just get permitted by the county and then by the state, and it's a really straightforward process, which we're already advancing. But what's really exciting is the US government is, they've said, and even just recently, the head of their new mining division, he's like the single point of contact. He was speaking in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. And just on the financial aspect, he says they're poised to be spending upwards of hundreds of billions of dollars to jog domestic production of critical minerals. Now, when it relates to silver, as you know, silver projects are very rare. The universe of companies in the silver business that stand to benefit from financial help from the US government during the Trump administration, it's a universe of one, and that's us. We're the only company right now that is seeking permits and is making plans to break ground on development during the Trump administration. And given the profile of our project, this is something that I think is going to make for very easy discussions for them to get behind, whether it's debt. Hell, they're even taking equity positions. But ultimately, just in dealing with the various agencies that we are, even though the federal government doesn't play many roles in what we're doing, all the all the people we're speaking with, they seem to be getting the memo. Like things are happening very quickly there. And Nevada was already, the best jurisdiction to be in the world without the financial aspect. But now you've got that and potential backstopping. I mean, it doesn't get any better.
Hard to argue with with those points. I mean, you've really got the whole package there, and it's really going to it's supportive and supported by in all sides and in so many ways. As if there's anything that we can see we're getting bipartisan support for, and that is this whole thing that allows for domestic security, and critical minerals is certainly part of it. So there are no arguments. They're almost falling over each other to get these things done. Um, Andrew, the next thing I kind of want to talk about is how you guys are cashed up. So this is one of the big tools that you need in your toolbox. You need a lot of cash to move things forward. And I'll let you speak to that because there've been some recent developments there too.
Yeah, well, listen, a lot about running a company is knowing when to say yes and knowing when to say no. And we really started moving, over last summer. I think we were at a low of 24 cents in April of last year, and then silver started breaking out, and the bankers start calling you. And for about 4 or 5 months, the calls from the bankers go from really, really nice and nice offers to, silver keeps hitting all-time highs when it was 55 or 60 or 65. You're like, oh no, this is the time. And then you keep saying no, you keep saying no, you keep saying no. And the calls start getting more negative. You're crazy. So we
Right.
held, things came together really, really nicely for us. A side benefit was I got to keep my lawyers busy working on Christmas Eve when we announced the $15 million financing, really just between two parties. It was Eric Sprott who invested $7 million, and then we got a brand new investor in the door for $8 million. So individually, both of those orders were the single largest I guess investments we've ever had at once into the company, and it's the definition of strong hand. So very rarely, and that was when silver was in the 70s. So it's been a wild ride, but you know. Very rarely do you do financings where your stock doesn't absolutely get crushed. We announced that financing, and I think we were up like 15% on the news that day, and it was done at $1.10. Today we're trading, in the $1.40. We've hit $1.50 highs thus far. So, you know, when you do the right thing, and I was playing a little chicken towards the end there, and who's going to blink first, but we pulled the trigger. We're cashed up now for 2026 based on our plans. And another nice thing about having our stock up here and just the absolute massive volume we've been seeing is, we still got something like $15 million or so of in the money warrants that we expect to come in. Those are warrants that expire over the next, say, 12 calendar months. And what's nice about those is that it's not just one big tranche that expires. There's not going to be one big wall of stock to chew through. We've been chewing through it in a very orderly fashion. So, not right now, I think we've got over $20 million in working capital. All the permitting initiatives we've got on the ground this year, all the drilling we want to get done, all of the various studies. That's probably only going to cost us about $15 million. And, I think pretty much that's offset entirely by the warrants that continue to come in. And, they haven't been holding us back. As we get higher and higher, we see, just tranches like sometimes we'll have $1 million come in a day, but it's still when we're just going. So um yeah, we might end the year with exactly the same amount of money that we have right now without having to do another raise, just because that's pretty much what we have out there is about what we're planning on spending this year. So yeah, it's a really good position to be in. Ben, it's great to have, yeah, obviously Eric Sprott's the number one silver bug in the world. He even got us into the Globe and Mail over the summer because he was buying hand over fist in the market, to the tune of millions and millions of shares from June till August, leading up to our last resource that we put out. And then, he's coming back in again for more at higher and higher and higher prices. He's never sold a share in us. And, I know him pretty well at this point. He's always said we're one of his favorite silver stories out there. So, yeah, the right people are paying attention, and we're cashed up and really looking to make our mark this year.
So Andrew, you're cashed up. You've got this $15 million sitting there, and you have big plans for 2026. How will you be spending that money?
Yeah, well, everything we're doing on the ground this year is to continue answering the unanswered questions of the project, as Rick Rule says. That's the way to value creation. And really, those questions are, how big can we get it? And how quickly can we get it permitted? So, we're moving decisively on both fronts. As I said, we've got a resource and PEA coming out in, a month or two's time. We're going to get the drills back, and we had a lot of success on our expansion drilling last year. And what's really nice about everything we're drilling out is we're not chasing standalone targets, satellite deposits kilometers and kilometers away that would require their own capex to, get developed. Every single thing we're drilling are extensions of veins that are already included in our mine plan. So, it's one portal entry gets you everywhere underground on our project, and then everything we're just drilling is step outs from there, which very, very low economic threshold to get in. And based off of everything we've seen thus far, everything we're drilling is right at the same grade profile or even higher than all of our other stuff. So yeah, we're going to get it bigger and better. I expect we'll do quite a bit of infilling this year as well, just continuing to convert our ounces to indicated, and then we're getting all of that permitting initiatives and the big ideas. In 2027, we want to go from an exploration play to having big yellow trucks around the project and working our way underground.
Sounds like you're well on your way. 2025 was really pretty incredible for BlackRock. You recently announced that you were added to the OTCQX Best 50 list. Shareholder returns, liquidity increase. Maybe you can speak to that a little bit, and how does that set you up for 2026?
Yeah, well, it's nice because that's just based off of really shareholder returns and de-risking the value in terms of liquidity. And yeah, last year was a banner year for us in that regard. We outperformed just about everyone of our peers. And it was kind of funny because the OTC, when they came out with that, they had the list of the top 50 performers, and I think we ended up at number 16 out of 50. But a few places down from us was BNP Paribas. So, I sent that to my mom, and she really liked that. But obviously at the end of the day, we've been working a plan, and at certain times, you're just eating a lot of dirt, just try putting your head down, doing what you know is best at the project level, trying to do what's best for the shareholders. As I said, saying no to financing is equally as important to saying yes sometimes, especially if you've got that gut. And it's nice to see that reflected in the massive gains. As I said, we were 24 cents in April, and we closed off the year way into the mid, dollar 20, dollar 30 range. So phenomenal return for everyone, and I think the best is yet to come.
So, Andrew, we've certainly done the rounds, talked a good bit about BlackRock, where you've been and where you're headed. We do like to end these on a bit of a maybe a lighter note. Maybe you could share with us an anecdote, an interesting or fun sort of story that relates to your experience in mining and building BlackRock to what it's become today.
Yeah, well, it's only just recently that we hit north of $500 million market cap valuation in Canadian dollars. And I always, it makes me stop and pause because, BlackRock 6 years ago when I stepped in was a very, very different story. I didn't come in because I saw, well, out of inspiration. I came in out of desperation because, I came into BlackRock originally as an investor based off of a grassroots project that we still have actually in Northern Nevada that I was very myopic on, and I saw a lot of value there. And, fast forward a year later, the management team that was in place then, uh, it didn't really seem like they were as committed as they should be to driving shareholder value. And by May of 2019, BlackRock was $800,000 market cap and trading at 3 cents. And I saw it, really as a calling, well, it doesn't seem like they're all that committed. I'm going to read them the riot act. So it took me about 2 or 3 months of sustained pressure. And I said, listen, at the end, if this is the best you guys can do, you need to step aside and give the company a chance. So ultimately, they were facing effectively getting delisted. They hadn't paid
Wow.
their counsel, they hadn't paid their accountants. They certainly weren't doing anything at the project level, and they had a financing open for 4 months, and I don't think they were
Wow.
able to raise a dollar because people could see that it wasn't circling the gutter, it was going down the drain. So by May of 2019, I think they were happy to hand me the big flaming pile of you know what, and I just set about building a company, and really it was just about making some changes at the board and at the management level, and we set about a plan, and I joined at 3 cents in May of 2019. The next week, I was able to attract, and I still don't know why the hell he said yes, but a guy by the name of Bill Howell to
Mm.
join me as executive chair and as really head of all operations on the ground for us. And Bill, his background's incredible. He was VP of exploration of Placer Dome, one of the largest mining companies in the world, and he had they were bought out by Barrick for about $10 billion, I think, in 2010, and he'd been CEO of a company since. But I was able to attract effectively a major mining VP of exploration type into what was effectively a $1 million company with zero cash and a green CEO, to say the least. And Bill and I just went about putting one foot in front of the other, and 6 months after joining, through his relationships and through his contacts down in Nevada, he brought us the idea to consolidate the Tonopah Silver District and bring exploration to it for the first time in about 90 years. And the rest is history. We hit on our first drill hole. We went from $100 million pre-drilling project, a lot of expectations, to now we've got something that has a intrinsic value that's going through permitting and is poised to be one of the lowest cost silver producers in the world when all is said and done. And it's been a wild ride, but I wouldn't change any of it.
Yeah, no kidding. That's pretty inspiring, and I want to thank you for sharing that because I think that maybe especially if we've got some younger viewers out there that are watching this and can take that kind of a success story to heart and just sort of a lot of keeping your nose to the grindstone and pushing forward and I can't even imagine some of the stuff that you've had to deal with, but sort of the tenacity, not giving up, and seeing that there's something there that's worth building and believing in it and just making it happen. But anyways, hats off to you. It's tremendous, and it's something. It's a public company. People can now go along for the ride, and I'm
Yeah,
sure
that's
there's plenty
right.
of ride left. So
Yeah, well, absolutely. Listen, we get this permitted and we start driving and we're seen as a near-term production company. We're this is a unicorn. I mean, the comps say, we get that. This is north of 1 billion. So if I can preside over 1 million to 1 billion, I mean, that would be another feather in the cap. But ultimately, this is a company that's now being valued based off of the value we've created at the project level. And, the yellow brick road is laid out in front of us in terms of how do we get it to the next level. And this is going to be a year of immense growth for us.
fantastic. Andrew, on that note, I just want to say thanks for your wonderful overview of BlackRock, a little bit of history, a lot of what the catalysts are to come and where things are headed. It's exciting times, and I think anyone out there who sees this and is listening to this should keep an eye on BlackRock if they're not already involved, and watch, and maybe don't wait too long to get involved. It looks like things are headed a lot higher. We'll watch for a lot of ongoing news, and we'll make a point of catching up again soon.
Much appreciated. Yeah, good to see you. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you in person.
Thank you.